Today we are going to discuss about how to set up, install, configure kubectl command on Red Hat Linux 8. So first of all we are going to start minikube 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 start. We are using Kubernetes version 1.19.4. Okay, and kubectl is a command line tool that allows us to run commands against Kubernetes clusters. By this we can deploy whoa, by kubectl we can create, delete, check logs and matrices of deployment, replica sets, replica controllers, and other things. Okay, so in the meantime I am also going to launch a Red Hat CLI version, and also we need to configure yum as we need to configure yum for kubectl. Kubernetes install. We For Red Hat Linux, this is the command we have to use. First of all, this configures the yum repo for kubectl, and this installs the kubectl. So I'm going to copy that and wait till the VM launch. By default, we cannot copy paste commands on Red Hat Linux, so I'm going to use putty. So I'm using putty here as it is easier to copy paste in putty. Putty is a SSH client to SS virtual machine. So let it install 8.5 MB. Okay, I think your minikube cluster has started, and Kubernetes behind the scene is using Docker version 19.03, and minikube also configures kubectl behind the scene, like kubectl got k8s. Currently, there are no pods running in a default namespace. Okay, so this kubectl was configured by minikube in our Windows, but in Red Hat Linux, we have to do this process ourselves manually. Like if I run kubectl now, see, kubectl is installed, but it is not configured yet. Kubectl get pods. No server was found. Okay, so now we have to transfer some certificates from Windows to Red Hat Linux. For this, we will use WinSCP tool. WinSCP, and we have to make a folder mkdir.kube. All the configuration files are stored in this folder. By default, the kubectl reads all the configuration file from .mini.kube folder. That's the default setting. Okay. 02 login, and I'm on the. So this is the path where all the configuration files of kubectl is stored. So we have to transfer client certification, client key, and backspace back, and CS certificate. Okay, now let's go inside .q folder directory, ls it's empty, We have to transfer these three files in .q folder. For this we will use move ca.crt client.crt and client.key to .q folder. See, it's moved. Now we have to write configuration file for kubectl. Its name should be config only, no extensions are required. I have already made a configuration file, so I am going to use that. Here API version is v1, clusters. Here we write the details of our cluster. In here we can also write the details of multiple clusters. Like if I have more than one clusters, then I will write cluster and the certificate authority that will be provided by the cluster provider. Like in cloud, AWS provides the cluster certificate authority, and the server name is also provided by AWS if we are launching Kubernetes cluster on cloud. But here our Kubernetes cluster was launched by Minikube, so these details are provided by Minikube, and this also, like client certificate, client key, and client authority. ca.crt, client.crt, and client.key. Okay, now let's remove these lines. And now comes to users. Name is Mahitesh. We can write any name here. I have written the name Mahitesh. Okay, and then user details, like certification details of user. Then config. This file kind is config matlab means this is a configuration file for Kubernetes. And now context. In context we defined which at present which user and which cluster is being used. Okay. We have to define here, like cluster is hitesh cluster. This is the name of the cluster I have given. And this is the username, like user mahitesh, this mahitesh. And we have given a separate name to the context, like myhitesh. So current context is myhitesh, means Kubernetes by default use myhitesh cluster to get the details of the pod, to launch the pod, to launch the deployment, to expose the pod. Okay, let's save it. ls this configuration file, everything is ready. Now let's run the kubectl get pods. No resources found in the default namespace. Like we in Kubernetes we have lots of namespaces, so default is the namespace. There are no pods running. Like let me show you kubectl get namespace. Like these are the lots of namespaces. In default there are no pods running. And now we can also see that kubectl is now configured to Kubernetes cluster running in Minikube. This is the VMware Kubernetes cluster is running, and this is the virtual machine we have configured kubectl. Okay, and we can also view config file from command line. Kubectl config view. This is a configuration file. Okay. By default, kubectl communicate with a master node at port number 48443. This is the default port number. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching.